ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance, insuring cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, and RVs, and more at Progressive.com. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on all those same television and radio dials. I got a big show for you today coming up in just a little bit. It's Will's weekly depth chart. It's my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL through this portion of the season. And Myles Garrett met with the NFL today. Should he have his suspension for the remainder of this season reduced? And for that matter, should Mason Rudolph, the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, see his suspension increased? That's all coming up, but it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Mark Geragos, Colin Kaepernick's attorney, through his grievance case with the NFL, and his spokesman from time to time over the last several years, appeared on the Adam Carolla Show. It's a very popular podcast that you can find anywhere podcasts are downloaded. And Mark Geragos told Adam Carolla that despite the travesty, despite the train wreck that was this past weekend, there's still a couple teams interested in Colin Kaepernick. Listen.
Anything you can share with us? Any breaking news?
I think you're going to hear something within the next 10 days. That's my feeling. I know I've made that prediction before, but there are a couple of teams, Bald, that you could probably guess. No disrespect to Gina.
None taken.
But there are 2 teams that I think are in the hunt. One who is legitimately in need of a quarterback that had a very poor showing on Sunday and has got an owner that I don't think gives and the other is an owner that maybe does give a but they still want to win and they're in the hunt.
2 teams, according to Colin Kaepernick's attorney, Mark Geragos, on the Adam Carolla Show, that might still have interest in the quarterback. One that just got bad quarterback play, poor quarterback play, and the owner doesn't care. And another who's good, but the owner does care. Of course, I've tried to play the mix and match game with who he could be talking about there. Total speculation, but on the first, I have to think that's probably somebody like the Carolina Panthers. Kyle Allen was bad this past weekend, and the owner of the Panthers, David Tepper, I don't think cares. As to who might be the team that is good, but the owner is worried about the blowback of signing Colin Kaepernick, I'm struggling to find that team. I'm struggling to find who that might be. But more than any of this, I'm struggling to believe Mark Geragos. He referenced it there. He's made predictions in the past. He's made predictions about Colin Kaepernick getting signed over a year ago, and none of it came true. But as much as anything, I'm having trouble and struggling believing Mark Geragos because it doesn't add up. From the beginning, the Colin Kaepernick equation has been somewhat simple. Yeah, I mean, it's layered with so many different things about social justice and how good is he, and Eric Reid's attachment and this social cause and this political position. But in the end, all that it ever was about was not black, not white, but green. All that it ever was about was, did the cost outweigh the benefit? Colin Kaepernick at this point is a backup quarterback. Colin Kaepernick is probably somewhere between the 50th and 60th best quarterback in the NFL. That's after 3 years off. Maybe before he was sidelined by the NFL, he was in the 30 to 40 range, but he was a high-end to now low-end backup quarterback. And a backup quarterback that comes with cost. Right or wrong, the NFL owners, all 32 of them, believe that Colin Kaepernick is bad for business. I don't think you have to blackball anybody. I don't think you have to go through the process of collusion to come to 32 independent decisions that this would be bad for business. NFL ratings are skyrocketing right now. People are watching. Business is booming, as opposed to 2015-16 with this controversy at center stage when ratings were declining. And so the calculus for every NFL owner through that entire time has been, does the benefit of a backup quarterback outweigh the cost associated to my business? And here's the thing. That benefit of Colin Kaepernick as a quarterback, well, that's diminished. And the cost after this past weekend and that tryout, that circus, has only increased. Here's what I mean. There's an article up at SB Nation right now by our friend Jeff Schwartz, who played offensive line in the NFL for many years, he talked about the success of backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I want you to think about who's winning across the league right now. Kyle Allen, the quarterback we just referenced of the Carolina Panthers, who had a bad weekend, to this point is 5-3. Despite that bad weekend, he's 5-3. Mason Rudolph, who's at the center of his own controversy right now, the backup quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's 4-4. Brandon Allen, who? Brandon Allen, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, he's 1-1. Add to that Teddy Bridgewater, who's 5-0. Gardner Minshew, who went 4-4. Matt Moore, who stepped in when Patrick Mahomes was hurt and went 1-1. And you've got a backup quarterback record of 20-13. For that matter, I think it would be fair to include Ryan Tannehill, who supplanted Marcus Mariota this year and has gone 3-1. And for that matter, I think it's fair to include Jacoby Brissett, who only went from backup to starter with 2 weeks' notice when Andrew Luck, out of nowhere, retired before this NFL season. Ryan Tannehill's 3-1. Jacoby Brissett is 6-3. That brings your backup quarterback record to 29-17. Backup quarterbacks are doing very well. Backup quarterbacks are winning. Historically, when you had a backup quarterback step in, your goal, your hope was to go 500. Let's just see if we can tread water, not lose our place in this season, see if we can stay status quo until our starter gets back. You got a backup quarterback record of 29-17. The point is, the need for a backup quarterback has diminished. The benefit of taking the risk on Colin Kaepernick has gone down. Teams are doing very well, thank you, with their backup quarterbacks. Why? Jeff Schwartz lays it out in his article. He gives you 3 reasons why backup quarterbacks have started to do better in the league. Number 1, offensive coordinators and head coaches are scheming them into success. They're making easier throws. No longer do you have to fit things into tight windows. You now have guys running free on complicated route trees, intricate play designs, bright minds across the league at offensive coordinator who make it easier for a quarterback to step in and go, oh, yeah, I do see Randall Cobb or whoever it may be running wide open. It does make you wonder what's happened in Los Angeles with Jared Goff and Sean McVay. I know he has less time. I know the offensive line is banged up, but why have those schemes all of a sudden ceased to be working for Jared Goff? But the long and short of his backup quarterbacks are getting to make easier throws. Number 2, they're tailoring the offense to the quarterback that steps in. They're making it easier on the quarterback, not asking him to be the guy he's replacing. Look at Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. When Nick Foles stepped in, Doug Peterson, Frank Reich simplified that offense and made it so that Nick Foles could succeed. Did what he does well. Did it so well, in fact, that he won a Super Bowl. And number 3, the quality of quarterback play has just advanced. It's gotten better. From young guys playing 7-on-7 at a young age to running the same system all throughout high school, college, and now into the NFL, where coaches have adopted collegiate systems. The quality of play at quarterback has increased. So between the quality of play increasing, the tailoring to backup quarterbacks, and offensive coordinators scheming easier throws for the backup, you're seeing more success. And it shows up in the record, like we're talking about. So the benefit of going out and grabbing Colin Kaepernick, the need has diminished. You don't have to take that kind of risk. You don't have to take on that kind of cost to get by with who is playing quarterback for you second string. And Rex Ryan, ESPN NFL analyst, was on Get Up, and he talked about that cost-benefit analysis.
What I see on the video is, look, if you want to break down the little video, see, hey, is he throwing the ball behind him? Is he too much air on his deep ball? Yeah, all those type of things. But that wasn't about this. As a coach, you don't want the circus in your locker room. And I'm sorry, but that's what it is. Is it going to be worth, all the extra media? You're going to have a backup quarterback, having press conferences and all those type of things. And part of being a backup is accepting your role. You push the starter but you accept the role as a backup. And we see right now, is he going to be happy in a backup role?
I don't know. But I do know this. I'm not sure the league looks at Colin Kaepernick at this point and says the benefit outweighs the cost. You're going to take on the circus. You're going to take on the PR hit. You might take on a loss on your profits. And for what? A backup quarterback who at this point is walking into a market where there is less need, where 32 teams are looking at their current situation and going, we're doing just fine. Why do we need to take on that risk? That's why I have trouble believing, Mark Garagos, that there's 2 teams ready to sign up Colin Kaepernick. And that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart.
He is the greatest quarterback of all time.
It's not the best quarterbacks of all time or the best quarterbacks of the year.
58! Go!
It's not even the current ranking.
We have no clue what we're looking for. We just know it when we see it.
It's what we saw this week.
No joking aside, or all joking aside.
It's the Will Cain Weekly Quarterback Depth Chart.
Yes, it is. And that brings us. Yes, it is. And that brings us to our top quarterbacks in the NFL through this week. It's my top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Not the greatest of all time. Not the way I think it's going to be at the end of this season. Not what they've built up through their career so far, but the way they've played this year. These are your top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. At number 1, it's Lamar Jackson. Right now, Lamar Jackson is your MVP. He is the riddle. He is the puzzle that nobody can solve in the NFL. I'm going to talk to Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL Insider, coming up a little bit later here on the Stephen A. Smith Show about how much debate there was inside of the Ravens organization about how great Lamar Jackson could be. But right now, there's no doubts. He's number 1 when it comes to your 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. At number 2, it's the only man ever mentioned right now in the MVP debate with Lamar Jackson. It is Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. He is the 2nd best quarterback in the league so far. At number 3, it's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott should be in the MVP conversation. Every analytic, every statistical measurement, everybody's eyeball test at this point is all converging along with a guy who simply won more games than anybody but Tom Brady since he entered the league. You can see that this guy, Dak Prescott, not only should be in the MVP conversation, but there's not a number where the Dallas Cowboys should walk away. $35 million? Write the check, Jerry. $37 million? Write the check, Jerry. $40 million? Write the check, Jerry. Dak Prescott is number 3 in your weekly quarterback rankings this season. At number 4, it's a quarterback who had a down week. In fact, one of his worst games since he turned pro. Still, he's your reigning MVP, and he is simply greatness. It is Patrick Mahomes. But I wanted to focus on the debut of another quarterback in Will's weekly quarterback depth chart. This is going to be the first time his name has made its way into the top 5. But with Deshaun Watson's poor performance against the Baltimore Ravens, Deshaun Watson has fallen out. And that allows Kirk Cousins to make his way in. Cousins, who has earned every doubt you have about him. Cousins, who has earned skepticism on what he will do when the pressure steps up. When the playoffs start, right now, simply performing. I just want to share with you a few numbers. Right now, Kirk Cousins' completion percentage, 70%. Kirk Cousins' quarterback rating, 115. Kirk Cousins' touchdown to interception ratio, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. How about his yards per attempt? Is he throwing the ball downfield? We know he's connecting on 70% of his passes, but is he even trying to get it downfield, or is he dinking and dunking? His average yards per attempt, 9.5. Every single one of these metrics, every single one of these stats are among the top in the league. And then my personal favorite statistic, expected completion percentage. This measures in what an average quarterback would do in your position, how much separation the wide receiver has, how complicated the throw is, how difficult is it what you're doing. How is your expected completion percentage? And Kirk Cousins, of the guys who've been starting this entire season, is number 1 at 7.2% above what would be expected for him. The only quarterback with a higher expected completion percentage than Kirk Cousins is Ryan Tannehill, and he's only played 4 games. These are jaw-dropping numbers for the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. The dude, right now, is putting away doubts. Now, he's still got to do it in the playoffs. He still has to do it when it matters. He still has to do it when the pressure's on. But right now, that has earned Kirk Cousins a place in the top 5 of Will's weekly quarterback depth chart. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Let me hit up the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line where I have Mark in Connecticut. What's up, Mark? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Hey, how you doing? I heard the stat you were given that portrayed the backup quarterbacks that were having success and debating Colin Kaepernick's relevance, but I think you're leaving out a few quarterbacks that may not look like they're having as much success as you described. If you look at the Giants, Daniel Jones, and the Redskins with Dwayne Haskins and Colt McCoy, who from every report all season long were that Dwayne Haskins wasn't ready, but he finds himself starting. And then also in, with Cincinnati. I mean, I think that really brings everything kind of muddled up back into the middle where, in a great situation, almost any quarterback that's NFL caliber can have success, but it's not as easy as, look how it is today. Everyone in the league's kind of good. Well,
all right, Mark, but here's
still
the
some
thing.
bad out there.
The quarterbacks you want to factor back in don't fit our traditional definition of what a backup quarterback is, do they? Those are actually quarterbacks of the future. Daniel Jones wasn't drafted in the top 10 by the New York Giants to be a backup quarterback. He was drafted to take over. Is he struggling like young rookie quarterbacks do? Yes. Same thing with Dwayne Haskins. He wasn't drafted by the Redskins to be a backup quarterback. No, he was drafted to be the quarterback of the future, and he's been pushed into that role earlier than expected. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about backups. When I tell you that backups are having a measure of success this season that depresses the benefit of signing Colin Kaepernick, you know as well as I do that I'm talking about guys like Gardner Minshew. I'm talking about guys like Jacoby Brissett. I'm talking about guys like Teddy Bridgewater. Those teams did not go into this season thinking, this is a guy we got to get on the field. This is a guy that could be the quarterback of our future. All right, thanks, Mark. Gil in Santa Barbara, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
Hey, how's it going, Will? How you doing?
I'm good, man. What's up?
I'm doing all right. I'm a big Cowboys fan, just like you, and a Dak Prescott fan.
All right, buddy.
One of my big questions was, I heard you say earlier, if whoever picked up Colin Kaepernick, it would be a loss of profits, or it would be, a big circus, or it'd be whatever. But what does that say? Just about society? What does that mean? Does that mean that, who's in charge of that? Why would that happen?
Well, you asked two different questions there. Nobody's in charge of it. It's just it's a collection of decisions made in the market by thousands upon thousands of people. Now, but to your first question, to take it back to that, what does that say about society? Why do you assume that? It says society didn't like the protest during the national anthem. I think that's what it says. Other people think it might say something else. But I think that the presumption that it would be bad business is built upon what happened in 2016 and 15. Ratings declines, feedback from fans, letters written to franchises and organizations. They came away from that entire experience going, this right here, this is going to be hard on our business. And Colin Kaepernick has failed that cost-benefit analysis because of that. Here, let me ask you this. Is Eric Reed in the NFL? Yes.
I'm sorry?
Is Eric Reed in the NFL?
Yeah.
And he protested during the national anthem, right?
Right.
Is Michael Bennett in the NFL?
Yes.
And he protested during the national anthem. That's right. He's on the Cowboys, yes. And he's doing very well. The point is, that cost-benefit analysis, it weighed differently for those two guys than it did for Colin Kaepernick. They are capable of being more productive on the field for their position than Kaepernick is assumed to be. They are better safeties and defensive ends than Kaepernick is a quarterback, and they don't bring the negative business implications because they're not as popular. The spotlight's not as bright on them. That's what I think NFL owners are calculating.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Gil. One more. Andrew in Orlando. You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
Hey, what's up, Will? I just want to touch on a couple points you had made. Two key words you said were the need and the circus that goes along with Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
I think you referenced them totally backwards. I think the only need was in this whole circus that was the workout was the need for the NFL to look good at the end. They didn't need Colin Kaepernick to get back in the NFL because he hasn't been in the NFL for years now. As a matter of fact, people were starting to forget about him even completely until the NFL brought this all to surface.
Right.
So they needed this NFL workout to go well for them in order for them to look good, even though they really didn't have any plans on signing Colin Kaepernick. And the circus that goes along with Colin Kaepernick is not there, no matter what people will say. Why? Because you can tell from his workout. When you look at the ratio of people who were there in attendance, there were much more people there in support of Colin Kaepernick than the two people who were there out protesting looking like idiots. Okay, so the circus that comes along with Colin Kaepernick, I think it's a little misguided. I think it's a little misconstrued.
Well, hold on. Not that I think that's the most important point for us to debate, but I do think for the matter of the record and being correct, you have to point out, Andrew, Colin Kaepernick moved that workout to a location that only he knew with 30 minutes notice. No one else, whether or not in support or in protest of him, would have been capable of being there unless it was prearranged. So I don't think we can look at that crowd and go, that's a reflection of what the market would be if you signed Colin Kaepernick. That was a reflection of the people that Colin Kaepernick gave a what's up to ahead of time. You know that's got to be true. That's just common sense, man.
So he gave ahead of time what's up to the two guys who were out there protesting.
I don't know how those two dudes ended up there, but I can tell you how the 100 others that showed up with I know my rights and I'm with Cap shirts got there.
So what you're saying is that he's trying to control the narrative even more by creating an idea that he has all these supporters when they're really people that he just signed up to come.
I think that crowd that you're referencing is not reflective of what the response would be if you signed Colin Kaepernick. But more important than that, when I use the word circus, I'm not even telling you that it's going to be necessarily massive protest or it's going to be massive support. It's going to be massively different than what NFL teams are judging. The business implications, I do think they think it's going to be negative. But the circus part, that's just, look, man, whether or not you like it or you dislike it, I think we can all agree Saturday was a circus, right?
Yeah, but it's no bigger than the every week circus that they have every week. I mean, a week ago you had a guy slap another guy in the head with a helmet. It's a circus every single week with the NFL. That is why the NFL is the #1 league. That's why everyone loves it.
Do you think they like that?
They love the circus.
You think they like? Oh, really? You think they like the Myles Garrett story? You think they like the Mason Rudolph story? That's what they want. That's what they want us talking about.
Did they like the Colin Kaepernick story?
No, that's my point, man. They don't want either of those kind of things in the league. They'd rather me doing my Week 5 top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. They'd rather me talk about Dak Prescott versus Carson Wentz.